Welcome to Redeemed for Jesus with Bill Sang, formerly the Bill Sang Podcast. I'd like to thank each one of you for joining us for this episode and would like to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. And please feel free to comment below to let us know if you have any questions or if there's anything you like about this program. Enjoy the show. I wish somebody would have told me that there are people that are going around the moon. I found it highly coincidental and surprising that, see, this past week was mine and Melissa's anniversary, so we've been together 15 years, and she's been on a Frank Sinatra kick lately. And toward the end of the week, I decided to download the song Fly Me to the Moon. And I thought that was very ironic because then, like a day or two later, I hear that the Artemis 2 has arrived from back around, going around the moon, most deep space flight in history. And I thought, wow, how appropriate. That's a nice theme for our anniversary. So this is Redeemed for Jesus with Bill Sang, and I am here with my wife, Melissa. And like I said, we are celebrating our anniversary for what, like another year or so?
Yes.
Something like that. Yeah, we don't have an anniversary day. We have like an anniversary week that turns into a month. It might as well just celebrate until the whole next year then, right? Might as well. So we're going to be talking about the moon landing. I keep on saying moon landing. Why do I want to say moon landing? The return of Artemis 2 from around the moon. Is that, Melissa, do you want to sound smart here for a minute? Because I'm sounding stupid. You want to talk for a minute about what we're going to be talking about today?
Well, we got to see the 4 astronauts landing into the Pacific from going all the way around the moon, and that was pretty neat to watch. And we got to hear what they said afterwards in Houston when they talked, and we thought it was pretty inspirational of the work that they accomplished and just the teamwork that they had in supporting one another, and also just their perspective on their accomplishments.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I thought that it was a little bit cheesy, their speech, when I was listening to it, because they kept on talking about unity and how they have more in common than not or something like that. And I thought, man, this is kind of cringy. This is kind of cheesy. But then you and I had a talk about it afterwards. And I thought your perspective on it was really good because just thinking about lots of the people that we've worked with, been around, and so forth, that we see that actually this message of unity and teamwork and not worrying so much about getting all the credit is something that is very important and much needed, as this crew had to work together on, I mean, staying alive in deep space. I mean, these people were gone from Earth. If something went wrong, they couldn't rely so much on people back in Earth. They had to depend on each other. And it's remarkable. I don't recall hearing anything about any serious mishaps when they're in outer space, which says that they probably did a remarkable job at working together.
These 4 astronauts are obviously really intelligent to be able to go all the way to the moon and back. And so hearing them talk, it just their message was just so clear and simple that, like, we on the earth are a crew and we can learn to work together to accomplish great things just like they did, and they had overcome obstacles, but they really had to rely on each other to survive. And it was really amazing to see their humility and to see how they were just really simple and just how they're able to work together. And I think a lot of people, that we've seen, a lot of people just in our culture make it really difficult to work with, and it just make life really difficult because life is, for a lot of people, it's just all about competition, being the best. But it's like so refreshing to see that when people just work together, a lot of really good things can happen. And also, you could tell in these astronauts there was so much peace, even after going all the way to the moon and back. And I just thought, man, they can even walk. Like, that's impressive. God was looking out for them, but also, they have peace in their hearts.
I think that it was really neat being able to hear from, what was it, Victor Glover, and his take on it. It was cool hearing him talk about God, talk about Jesus and his faith and all that when they returned. Honestly, I don't even remember exactly what he said in regards to that, but it's such a nice testimony to have a man to go into space, go around the moon, be able to function at a very high level doing a mission like that, and then return and then give all the glory to Jesus, give all the glory to God, and to testify to his reality. It was also neat being able to see this. I mean, I don't put a ton of stock in diversity. I think that diversity is overblown. But let's face it, the diversity represented on that spacecraft wasn't merely black man, white woman, Canadian, and whatever the other get. That despite the fact that I don't put much stock in that sort of stuff, it still does to me represent the reality that from person to person in this world, even inside of our families, that we are all very different. And I think that's what a lot of people have a hard time with is they want everybody to be like them. And if they're not exactly like them, that they get irritated. But to tell the truth, I think that more times than not, we get irritated at people that are more like us than not like us, because it's like two positively charged poles on a magnet coming up against each other and just repelling each other. But I think that it was really neat to be able to see that these people were so different. And I don't know what all their religious beliefs were, but it was cool to have Christian representation there. One of the things that people in politics have been saying for a while is to accuse people. I don't know if this guy was left wing, right wing, whatever, but lots of people claiming that Christian conservatives are anti science. So to see a Christian go into outer space and be able to testify about Jesus was pretty cool, I thought.
Something I found fascinating was that Victor, when he spoke, he said it wasn't about going to the moon, it's about coming back. So just so much of what people dream of is like, well, what if we could live on the moon? What if we could live on Mars? But his excitement was actually coming back and bringing the knowledge of what God's created out there back to people here.
And that was one of the cool moments too, I thought, in his speech, was he testified to a very real truth that's not just faith-based, but also scientifically based, because I've heard so many Christians that believe, I'm sorry, I don't believe in alien life forms in terms of extraterrestrial, evolved on other planets, or God created them on other planets. Could he have? It's possible, I suppose, but I don't think that the Bible really gives a lot of room for something like that to have happened. Nonetheless, what he said is he said you look into outer space and it's so empty, and people can look at that and say that, oh, how unimportant we are, how big of a waste this is. But what he pointed out is that actually amplifies how important we are, that God created this entire universe. It's empty, which, by the way, it's also very amazing. The planets, the stars, and everything else inside of the universe. But then it all boils down to this little, what he called an oasis of a planet called Earth, where we dwell, where we live, where all of life in the entire universe is. I mean, how can you say that the universe does not magnify how important the planet is, and how God's care for us as living beings isn't amplified by the reality the universe is so big and we live on this little speck of a planet in the grand scheme of it all? I thought that was pretty cool that he pointed that out. It was something, I think, for all people of our faith to be able to think about and to be able to really give glory to God about as well. Which, by the way, as we're talking about the unity, diversity, love, and all of that, that I have to say that in the respect of like working together, that this whole thing of them being astronauts and accomplishing this huge goal, very reminiscent of family. That as a family, that it's important for people to be able to live together, operate together, appreciate each other's differences, appreciate each other's strengths, not heap expectations on one another that just aren't realistic. And I don't mean that like in a condescending sort of way. I mean that like in the respect of, we have expectations for, say, maybe our spouse, or maybe our children, or maybe our parents, or maybe our grandparents, or maybe our grandchildren, and so forth, that maybe aren't within the realm of their strengths or desires or their just general track for life. And I can think of so many people I remember there's a guy I used to wrestle with, for instance, who in his family was the first one of them not to be a state placer or state champion, and they considered him a disappointment. I'm thinking, my goodness, how petty and stupid that is. And yet, there are so many families that heap these strange and mind you, that's just an example, but heap strange expectations on their families. But the reality is, what we should be relying on our family to do is to excel where they are strong and to celebrate where they are strong so that we can help one another out in different ways. And I think of all the relationships, though, where that is important would be between a husband and wife, because husbands and wives, men and women, are very, very different creatures altogether. And learning how to live together, it's definitely something that takes some work. And I think that because of television, and also I would say that because of the lack of commitment inside of our culture, it's very hard for people to grapple with the reality that, you know what, you might need to put some effort into your relationships, and that's very, very important. And most people, I think, will, when at the first sign that something isn't what they expect, are like, well, I'm not comfortable, I'm out of here. And that's just the norm for our culture, that it's something that people don't understand the amount of work that actually goes into marriage. And I think that it's something that's worthwhile and it can absolutely pay off. Now, Melissa, you particularly, we both very much, something we share in common is that we both love our current president. I think that he's a great guy. I think he's a great president. No matter what anybody thinks about him, I think he's doing a great job. And there are some things right now that I think that, give it a little bit of time. I didn't vote for him to do anything specific. I voted for him because I trust him. Everybody else, tell me. Do you trust Kamala Harris? Do you trust Joe Biden? Do you trust a Mitt Romney? Do you trust, I mean, there's so many names we can go down, these lifelong politicians, that it's like, can you really tell me that you trust them more than Donald Trump? If you say yes, my goodness, are you new to the whole political game? Now, Donald Trump posted something controversial recently, and Melissa, you said you have an interesting take on it, and actually, I haven't even asked you specifically what that is yet, because I kind of want to be surprised by what your answer is going to be here. So, Donald Trump, that was criticized by the Pope, and the next thing we know, and there is this interesting picture that's shared on his True Social. Some people said it's of Trump dressed as Jesus, others say it's him dressed as a Pope, and a lot of people are offended by it. Melissa, tell us your thoughts.
Obviously, there's a lot of conversation on social media about Donald Trump. I follow the news, the conservative news, every day, and so it's really easy to look at my phone and say, "Oh, this is what happened," and it's just amazing to see all the good that Donald Trump has done, and just with the illegals, just with the voting system, just so many things with trying to protect our country, protecting Israel, and just I mean, just the list goes on and on. I just when we saw this post that Donald Trump made, it just made me think about how everything he does is in the spotlight, like every single thing. And so, just people that are criticizing him, he obviously took the post down, so it was a mistake. He saw it as that on his part. And I thought, how many mistakes do people make in their own home, in their own lives that nobody in the world knows about? Probably a lot. It's amazing that people try to hold the president accountable for every single one of his mistakes, but really, most people don't even realize their own mistakes. And I guess with Bill being a pastor, we see that in ministry, like people don't, the goal is for everyone to recognize their own sin and to know they're all, lost and we need Jesus. But a lot of people, they only recognize the pastor's sins. And so the guy up front, the guy with the microphone, and it's just amazing that people all have, all have sinned and fallen short in the glory of God. And it's not just Donald Trump. Yeah, I think just anyone in the spotlight is just an easy target. But I think even then, I think Donald Trump's doing an amazing job. And he brought those two soldiers that, basically fell into Iran. I mean, that's amazing. He worked so hard to get those guys out, and that shows a lot of character. So just so much of what he does, just so much character. So even a slip up here or there is like, I think it needs to be forgivable.
I agree. And, I think you made a very good point. Sometimes I feel like I'm preaching, even if I share a scripture like all have fallen short, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It feels like that people's translation of that is
Yes.
Bill has fallen short of the glory of God.
Yep.
Bill sins and falls short of the glory of God. The pastor sins and falls short of the glory of God. Yeah, I absolutely agree. People should really look inward. By the way, I'm not planning as dressing like Jesus or the Pope anytime in the near future. And is it something that I would say that, oh yeah, that's totally all right? No, I wouldn't say that's totally all right, but there's a couple of things you have to know about Donald Trump. He is an internet troll. He has been for a long time. And frankly, when the left was painting pictures of Barack Obama on the cross, I think that, and also regaling the fact that somebody urinated in a jar and put a cross inside of it, and they called that art. It's like, come on, spare me, please, your anger, because really, you don't care. You would just as soon do that yourself, you people on the left. So don't, spare me your contempt toward Donald Trump and doing something like that. And by the way, it was something he shared, not something he created. He did remove it. He probably saw that, whoops, I really stepped in it this time, or whoever posted that for me really stepped in it this time. And so now I need to do an about face. Will he apologize for it? No, never. Not in a million years will Donald Trump ever apologize for something like that. But again, I mean, look at what these other politicians have done. What you have to recognize about Donald Trump is he is pro free speech. He's pro freedom of religion, not freedom from religion like you crazy atheists like to promote, but freedom of religion to worship as you please or not worship at all if you please. And so Donald Trump posting something like that, whether he posts himself as Jesus, the Pope, whatever, instead of getting too hung up on things like that, and again, it's not that I would approve of it, regardless of which one it is. On the same token, look at the good things that he's doing. We know that Donald Trump's not perfect. We know that Donald Trump has made some missteps, and I would not endorse the idea of dressing up like Jesus or dressing up like the Pope and then posting pictures of it on the internet. However, he has done quite a bit of good. And Josh Howerton, a pastor in Texas, where in Texas? I don't know. We don't know where in Texas. Somewhere in Texas. That he has this great, I don't know what you call it, motto or something. Donald Trump's not a king. Our president is not a king, as so many people have been kind enough to remind us of. But the closest thing we have to compare politically to our president is a king. And the Bible gives us a model of 3 different types of kings to which we can expect based on the spiritual condition of the nation. The first one is Josiah, the righteous and good king, the one who tears down the high places, the one that turns worship back to the one true God, that has good policies, and just about everything that he does is good, and everybody who is decent approves of it. Which, by the way, some of the things that Josiah did, some of you all might say, oh man, that was harsh. Well, yeah, sometimes when you're combating evil, you have to do things that are a little bit harsh. Number 2, Jezebel. Now, Jezebel wasn't a king, she was a queen, but she corrupted the king that she was married to, which was Ahab. And Ahab, she turned his heart to foreign gods, and to evil practices. All sorts of horrible things and debauchery that she was responsible for, and murders and crime, and just turned everybody's heart away from the law and toward wickedness. I would say that, frankly, if you want me to be honest here, Barack Obama is definitely the model of that. I mean, he turned so many people's hearts toward wickedness, and I've seen so many Christians continue to walk in that way because they just love Barack Obama that much. I mean, they call Trump supporters cult worshipers, but when I see the following of Barack Obama, way, way worse, because people follow his ways, and because of his charisma, that they continue to follow in the wicked path that he has hewn out for them to trod down. And it's very, very sad. But Jezebel was one that influenced the king to turn his heart away from God and toward foreign gods and toward evil practices. And all the policies hurt the people, turned hearts away from God, and it was just horrible. And really, I cannot think of a better, even Joe Biden, as horrible as what he was, that Barack Obama was the foundation in our country for horrible policy to turn people's hearts away from God. He was the one that said that America is no longer a Christian nation. Regardless of what your thoughts are in terms of separation between church and state, saying America is no longer a Christian nation is a huge departure from the moral foundation that we once had. Now, the third type of king is Jehu. Who's Jehu? Well, Jehu, he was a good politician, and that he wasn't necessarily the most godly person. He didn't necessarily make all the right moral decisions. However, when it came to policy, he was a net benefit to the country, did good for the country, and that people, if they were able to vote for him, would vote for him again in a heartbeat despite his shortcomings. Now, what Josh Howard points out is that this is Donald Trump. He's got his shortcomings. He makes his missteps. But all in all, when you look at his policies and the direction he's pointing the country, I tell you what, even with the people I've seen condemn these pictures and some of the silly things that he said or done or whatever, he hasn't really done anything stupid, to tell the truth. You know, just social media. I mean, that's been people's biggest hang up about Donald Trump has been social media. That nonetheless, a lot of us who like say, oh, this is atrocious, this is horrible, in the next breath will say, I would vote for him again.
Yep. Yeah, and on Easter, I mean, he posted he is risen. You know, he's read numerous Bible passages. They're on social media. You know, you can check them out. He's always promoted the Bible. You know, he celebrated, the National Day of Prayer so much. He's helping to turn our nation back to God. And I mean, that to me, I see him more like Josiah because, I mean, he tries to tear down, and he's torn down a lot of these liberal policies that reject God. And so I think he's just really done a great job.
And now I'm going to pick up on that here as well, and just kind of, because I liken Trump to Jehu along with Josh Howerton. But you know what? Truth be told, time will tell. Time will tell whether he's a Jehu or a Josiah. What I will guarantee you, and I mean I guarantee you right now, he is not the Jezebel figure. We saw that in Joe Biden for sure. A guy who said that it is, how did he put it? He said that it is immoral for parents not to transition their children. I mean, my goodness, how horrible of a person are you? And he was pro men and women's sports. And I mean, just if you just go down the spectrum, just open up the borders, scores of people pouring in over the border. The economy, tore down the Keystone Pipeline, just all sorts of horrible policies that were destructive to the nation, turning people's hearts away from God and discouraging people from following after God, where Donald Trump, at the very worst, is going to go down in history as a Jehu. And I think that, Melissa, as you said, and as I pointed out about Josiah, some of the things that he did, he tore down the high places. If we, mind you, I'm not advocating we do this, but if we tore down the pagan places of worship in our society, people would say, oh my goodness, that's a horrible thing. Yeah. The Bible said it was a good thing to tear down the high places, the places of worshiping foreign gods. So you might think that certain things like removing illegal immigrants from our country is a horrible, terrible, awful thing. And oh my goodness, how can they use vans? And how is it they could shoot people that interfere with law enforcement and blah, 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 blah. That you know what? Sometimes doing the right thing is ugly. And when you have wicked people trying to interfere, bad things are going to happen. And it's sad, and we don't want that to happen. But we also know that evil is going to continue to rear its ugly head until somebody good puts their foot down and says, no more. No matter what means are necessary, we are going to accomplish this goal to eliminate evil and promote the good. So we got to talk about the moon landing, and we got to talk about how, all in all, at the end of the day, that God is glorified through all of this. This thing with Iran, the thing with the immigration, the thing with the moon. At the end of the day, this is all going to glorify God. And I think that it's all going in a good direction. What's going to happen after Trump? What's going to happen now with our space program? Who knows? Only time will tell. But we are at the close of our program. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this program. Please leave a comment below. And don't forget that one day, every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father, and all of creation will be redeemed for Jesus. Thank you for joining us.
Mountains bow down, the seas lift